Hello everyone, 76 Patriot here, and today I want to take a bit of a break from more of the serious political topics and predictions and kind of do a fun activity with you guys. So I'm just on the website on 538 here, and I'm going to be using the Swing-O-Matic resource, which basically shows what would it take to turn blue states red or red states blue. There's a lot of useful information in this article, in this web page rather, that kind of details what factors or variables would shift the election between one or two, or one of either of the candidates, is what I mean. And we can actually, obviously, this is based on 2020 turnout, the results, but we can actually change, for example, all these demographic categories here, independent share of the vote, and turnout, level of turnout. And so this is really kind of a fun thing. I think this is a fun bit of an experiment. And so let's just dive right in and have some fun. And I'm still going to try to be realistic, obviously. So let's just start off with race, actually. I'm going to start a bit out of order. We know, based on polling at least, I shouldn't say we know, but we assume, based on repeated polling, that Trump is, if not going to increase with black voters, then at the very least, Biden is going to hopefully have at least some decline of support among them. So let's just say that black turnout is maybe, or not turnout, black vote margin is maybe 2 points down. And let's say that black turnout is a couple points down as well. Just be conservative. And look at that. Georgia already flipped. Now, granted, if we look at the margin, it's a point victory. And unfortunately, this website doesn't show the exact margin by raw votes, but it does show so that would be a 1 point Trump victory. Based on that alone, this isn't factoring in, we could be probably a lot more bullish, honestly, and say black turnout is even lower, but let's just leave it at that. So let's say Hispanic turnout let's say Hispanic vote margin. We've seen a lot of polling that shows Trump doing significantly better with Hispanics this time. Instead of losing him by 37 points, maybe he loses them by 20. I'm not going to be that conservative. Let's just bring this down to 29. Let's be a little bit pessimistic, if you will, and be as cautious as possible. But look at that. According to that metric alone, Arizona would have flipped. And let's see by how much. It's just over nearly a 1.5 point victory. So this really goes to show you that just based on a couple metrics alone so far, Trump, is getting close to where he needs to be. He's at 262. So let's just say, and this is honestly hard, because I'm doing this a bit out of order, but I thought I'd go for kind of the easy stuff first. AAPI, I don't honestly know how. Let's just say Biden does a point worse. I don't know. I don't want to be too sporadic or just throw out things that I don't know. I'm not even going to address that one. White. Let's say that Biden or Trump does 1 point better with white voters, and look at that, he wins. Now, granted, turnout's 73%. I think turnout's going to be less than it's a narrow win, 272. So in that situation, he would basically have flipped Wisconsin, Arizona, and Georgia, which is interesting. And this is one turnout is one. There's a lot of people saying that 2024 is going to have much less turnout than 2020, much lower level, and I can definitely see why. And actually, if we go to the age category, this is where things get really interesting. And there are so many young voters I have talked to personally that I know, and they're just like, I'm not going to vote, this year. I don't like either candidate. And that's kind of a fascinating thing because a number of them voted in 2020. So let's say turnout drops by 3 points. Let's be conservative. And there Pennsylvania flipped. And let's also say we've seen in a lot of polling has shown that Trump is doing much, much better with younger voters. I don't know if that's going to hold, so I don't want to be too optimistic. I don't want to decrease it by 15 points or anything crazy, but let's bring it down to say 20, 25. Be a bit cautious, conservative there. And look at that. He would have flipped nearly every swing state. Michigan is still holding on by a thread. But look at that. Trump won 297 according to that, just based on that alone. And now, of course, there are a number of other kind of factors to take into account. Of course, we have these other age demographics, and the boomer generation is interesting because that's one that I see quite a bit of support for Trump, and that is definitely evident in these numbers here. But I also see declining, and I've even heard kind of reports that older voters are expected, at least by some pundits, to skew slightly even more left this year. So let's just, I don't want to cancel out the gains that we already made here, but let's be a bit cautious and not overconfident. So let's say, for whatever reason, and I don't think it's going to happen because Biden is just doing so bad, but just to be extra cautious, let's say Trump somehow performs 1 point, let's just say a point worse, maybe 2 points worse with older voters. There, Nevada would have flipped back, but Trump still wins. So, let's say turnout is down. I think turnout is going to decrease, honestly, across the board. There's a lot of people saying that. I just think it's going to happen. And obviously, there's no, really smart engineering going behind the scenes. I'm just plugging in random numbers to see what happens and kind of have some fun, but also going to make some educated guesses here. College educated voters, I think may go even more liberal this year. I don't know. Let's just say a point. Let's say turnout goes down a little bit. For non-college educated voters, let's say Trump wins them by more. He's doing very well in these white working class states. Look at that. Nevada and PA flip back. Now let's say turnout's down. He's still holding on to them. Now, gender is an interesting one because female and the gender divide between, by parties and by voting, I should say, is growing bigger and bigger as each cycle goes on. So female, I wouldn't honestly I wouldn't be surprised if they vote, let's just say a point more for Biden. But let's say males, Trump is doing really well with men. So see, we're basically just going back and forth in some of these states. Let's leave turnout there, because we haven't really seen kind of the ramifications of the abortion issue in a presidential election since the Roe v. Wade is overturned. So let's just leave turnout as that and be skeptical. Male turnout, I think, will probably decrease by maybe a couple points. And then we arrive at income. Income is a hard one, and there's just going to be quite a bit of guesswork in this. Under 30K, now these people, my guess is, vote strongly Democrat, perhaps because a lot of them are on welfare, or maybe they're just, uneducated about the fact that, Democrats are basically killing the middle and lower class. So let's just say that Trump does 1 point better with them, and turnout goes down a little bit. Let's just put turnout down across the board because that's kind of expected this election. Let's say that 30 to 60K, Trump is doing better with every demographic. So again, I'm just kind of spitting out numbers here. But let's say 100K or more. There's been a lot of billionaires or not a lot, but a number of kind of Silicon Valley people that have come out against Biden this time around. So let's drop that by a point and maybe that enthusiasm. And then also 60 to 100K, let's say Trump does a little better. Whoops, that's the independent share. Let's say Trump does, 2 points better. There. He would have won Michigan and flipped Nebraska second. Now that's actually interesting. I didn't see him doing that, but that's interesting. So that, as of playing around with all that, we haven't accounted the independent share of the vote into this kind of model. And, I don't know if I'm actually going to, because that might just take up a lot more time and be even more boring, which I hope this is not so far. But as of right now, and if we actually go down to the margins, let's quick look at the swing states. If, this is even reasonably, just barely, correct, Trump would have won Arizona by over about 3.5 points. He would have won Georgia by around 3. And he would have won Nebraska's second, actually, barely by a thread, by about 0.5 point. He would have won North Carolina by about 4, not surprising. And New Hampshire, down to a 5-point race. Some of these are getting closer. Where else would he have won? Yeah, New Mexico again, about a 5-point race. You know, and this is actually in line. He would have won Pennsylvania narrowly, and I'm forgetting another one, Wisconsin, by about 3 points, in Michigan. I'm forgetting Michigan. Very narrowly, by the skin of his teeth. And honestly, actually, wait, just for fun, yep, Virginia's down to a set. You know, a lot of this actually falls right in line with polling because Trump is up by, actually over 3. This is actually underestimating Trump's uh, kind of polling overall because he's doing even better in some of these states as far as margin wise than what I just showed you guys. But overall, I think obviously Trump would be president if anything like what I just showed you guys actually comes true. So this is a fun resource. I hope this was kind of a fun exercise and not a complete and absolute bore to you all. If you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comments, leave a like, and subscribe and all that jazz. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.